What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to episode 7 of Domiciled, the podcast that explores the subculture of truck drivers as well as logistics professionals, bringing you their stories to the masses. I'm your host, Scott Cleary. We have another fantastic guest for you coming up in a bit. But first, over to Paul, as usual. What's up, my guy? What's new in your world?
What's going on? How we doing?
All smiles all the time.
Yeah. No, a lot of travel for me. How about you?
Me, yeah. So no travel much, but you were just down. You've been where have you been running around to?
I was in Sarasota. I was actually near
Hmm.
you. I was bummed we couldn't make that
Right.
quick
I
little
know.
little golf session, but actually ended
Golf
up
session,
playing.
a brunch. Couldn't
A,
even couldn't even get a
I
brunch.
couldn't even get a
Oh,
brunch out of you.
a
Ugh, God.
brunch.
But but no, we actually ended up playing at this public course that's attached to the IMG, which is like
Uh-huh.
a preparatory school. I'd never heard of this, right?
Yeah,
Preparatory
my brother did
school.
a football camp there. They tried to recruit him, but he didn't go.
That's wild. So I was told
Yeah,
that they've
it's a
sent like
big
5
club. Yeah,
quarterbacks to the SEC. So that's crazy.
pretty
But
serious.
yeah, it was cool. I played 9, did pretty well. I watched
Hmm.
some kids that must have been like 14 years old,
Yep.
absolute missiles, like playing from the tips, like just
Yeah, just launching little
putting it
dimple
putting it
missiles out
putting
there.
it
Just
putting
send
it
him the
4 feet.
Titleist up the gut.
I mean, putting it 4 feet from the hole on the green from the back, like and they're like, I'm not that tall, but I mean, they're small. They maybe come up to like under my pec. So it's just
They
like,
got real whippy drivers, and they're just
no, one of them, I'm
drilling
pretty
them
sure
past
just
you.
had like steel, like just a regular steel. I mean, these kids were next level.
Yeah,
Um, it was kind of crazy. Yeah, it was. I
that's
don't
what you
think
get in
they had anything
Sarasota.
special. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what you get. That's what you get in Sarasota. Is the rich kids just ripping golf balls.
yeah. And
Oh
then
man.
I played the Bobby Jones Golf Club, which I think is a public
Hmm.
course, which is in Sarasota. That was fun. Hot, very
Oh yeah.
hot.
What time of day? What time of day do you
Oh,
go?
they booked it for noon.
Oh no, that's a good time.
So I was dripping. I was like,
Yeah, especially you. You're used to Chicago, like,
yeah, oh, it gets hot
you
here.
know.
It gets
No, it
hot here.
does, but dude, like I told you this story. Like I went golfing. I live in Clearwater. I went golfing last August, like on the drop of a hat, like middle of the day, like 3 o'clock. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like last minute, right? Like 2:15. Can you go? So I drink a lot of water. You know that. I brought a gallon with me. I bring a gallon every time I play golf, just because whatever. Had my Had my water mostly done for the day, brought the gallon, we tee off, it's like 93, real feel like 98, 99. It's insane.
No.
Yeah, yeah, I'm covered in, like, SPF 50, playing like trash because that's just what I do, but the point is I finished the round, I drank the whole gallon of water, which I get about 3 quarters usually, but I drank the whole gallon of water, and I didn't go to the bathroom once, and I
Not
had a
once.
pounding headache, not a single time.
Not
Not
once.
one bush
Yeah.
was disturbed.
Yeah.
No, and it's like a pounding headache. It was stupid. But no, I know. So like you got to play the 9 and we were trying to throw together a little round at TPC together. I ended
Yeah,
up
that
playing
would have
that
been
this
fun.
weekend.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It so it was a cool course and I'd pay 100 for it, which is what we
Uh-huh.
paid, right? So like, a higher end tee time, but
Yeah.
really nice course. But like height of the season, it's 275. And I'm like, no way. Like there's a course
Oh,
back home. Yeah, there's a course back home called Farm Neck, wicked nice course, semi-private, and it's about 275 in the summer. I mean, it's up in
yeah.
Mass, so it can't be open in the winter. And like like one of the greens that was a little beat up in the back. Like
Yeah.
the overall was great, but I'm like 275. No.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was pounding the ball off the tee, which is nice because my drive and I have been fighting for a little bit. Geez, anybody who showed up for logistics just hung up already. We're talking about golf. Maybe not though. Maybe not. There's like end. I don't want to hear about these idiots shooting in their 90s. But
We'll fix it in post. We'll clip it in
yeah,
post.
yeah, yeah. Let's cut this whole part. This whole thing's gone.
Yeah.
Chris is in the background, like, what's going on? No, so I uh I was hitting great off the tee, which is good because my driver and I have been
Uh-huh.
fighting. I don't know what happened. I tweaked the weights a little bit. I think it made her
Mhm.
happy. So now we're pounding them straight and struggled with the irons
Really?
and the wedges, which is weird. My wedges are usually strong. Ground was a little softer than I expected, but draining putts for the first like probably front
Attaboy.
nine. Then yeah, but like to save bogey,
Yeah.
draining putts. Like
Hey, that's
um
hey, it's bogey's better than double bogey, and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But no
bar's
no
better than
no
bogey.
travel, no travel for work, something a little bit coming up. Um But you've just been running though, right? Like you were in Texas before this.
I've been to Texas like 4 times. I'm going again on the 22nd. Yeah, it's I
Conrad, get
a
the guy
lot.
a condo. Get the company a condo.
No, I think it's just that this year, I think a lot of the events were, Dallas, Frisco, Fort
Yeah.
Worth area. I think that's just kind of how it worked. Um,
Hmm.
but you know how it is. You meet a lot of great people. The last one I came from was is called SWA.
Hmm.
Great group of folks from the southeastern part of the U.S. All
Hmm.
they seem like family-owned businesses for the most part. I don't want to speak too much for all of them. I'm sure there's some of them there that, maybe it's a little different, but just really cool to see how operators are dealing with some of the things that come up. I mean, hearing about e-commerce is definitely something, some folks that traditionally I think were pallet in, pallet out have kind of seen that, man, I can get a lot of money out of 10,000 square feet. So,
Yeah. It's a lot of just in time, right? Or just
yeah,
low inventory. Yeah.
I think it's honestly just the fact that it suddenly becomes it's not a bunch of trucks coming into your facility. I think it becomes
Mhm.
one or two trucks in, and I think it becomes a lot of UPS and parcel out.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
Lots of
think that
small pack. Yep. Because it's all the Amazon
yeah,
effect.
that
Yeah.
concept, and I guess hearing people talk about, hey, I guess people are addicted to next day. But the most fascinating thing I heard is, I guess Amazon doesn't necessarily do, and I'm hearing this third hand or second hand, but I guess Amazon only does like if you're within a certain temperature range. So temp control stuff is awkward between like August and October, right? Or like July and
Sure.
October. So
Hmm.
there's quite a bit of money it sounds like to fulfill temp control warehousing space because I mean like make and it's stuff you wouldn't even think of makeup
Right.
certain
Okay.
like
Like
chocolate
anything that says
bars, yeah.
store in a cool, dry place.
Well,
Sort
I
of. Yeah.
mean, just below melting point, right? Like chocolate,
Right.
you put it in your pocket, it'll melt, right? Like how do you? That
Right.
doesn't have to be frozen though. It can't be frozen, and the milk solids will separate. So it's like little things like that, just picking up.
Look at you. The milk solids will separate. Would you
Uh,
get an A in science?
no, never. So not once.
No.
But no, I think it was just really interesting to talk to folks about like where things are. Also got to talk to some folks that owned a couple trucking companies
Okay.
in the Florida area, Jacksonville area, and that was really cool. Just hearing like
Hmm.
drayage and people were talking strikes and longshoremen
Yeah.
and this and that, and it was just interesting to. It's always fun to be around people that know more than you because
Hmm.
you can just sit there and go, and then you can ask a couple questions and learn, which is always great. But yeah, I mean, it's just another. We're probably wrapping up the conference season here soon. I'm sure you're just getting ready for
Yeah.
maybe one or two last ones, and then I think
Yeah.
most of us are good until like maybe March, April.
Yeah. Yeah. Which because then it's holiday season, where everybody
Yeah,
makes every excuse for anything that's going wrong that's possible.
yeah.
Plus, yeah. So, well, speaking of
Learning
show
from people.
season and
Oh,
learning from people, and no, also that, and talking to drayage carriers and truckers in general. You think it's time to bring our guests in, Paul? What do you think?
I think that's a perfect idea.
All right, everyone's sick of hearing about our chunking shots on the range, and then and of
Oh,
course
yeah. By the
just
way, everyone, I'm awful. I'm not.
oh yeah, none of us are good. Yeah, we're not good. I
Yeah,
shot a 90 a couple weeks ago and felt like Superman. So
yeah.
yeah, only way is up or down, preferably down, I guess. Huh?
Or it's just
Anyway,
flat the rest of our lives.
yes, just you suck. All right, so to that point, our next guest actually cut his teeth as a team driver for Schneider and has a array of experience as a company driver, owner op, and lease purchase operator, which we'll get, Paul, we're going to get into that a little bit later. We're going to have
Oh, I'm
that
excited.
conversation, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So he calls Eastern Kentucky home and has over 2 million miles, 2 million safe miles driven.
that's
You can
awesome.
catch him at several logistics-based trade shows and follow his adventures on Instagram at Indie Trucker. Welcome to the podcast, sir, Chris Thomas. Welcome to the show, Chris. Thanks so much for joining and taking time out of your day to chat with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Don't have any golfing stories, unfortunately. I'm usually too busy tearing up the roads.
Love it. Just ripping asphalt.
Yeah, I guess with 2 million safe miles, I mean, you definitely spend a lot of time
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
road for
So,
sure.
and that's under 20 years. I feel like I'm getting
Mhm.
into my slow stage now. I've been home a lot here this summer, so kind of slowed down
Good.
for the most of the year here, but yeah, it's been a trip. It's been a journey.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to just go ahead and ask. I feel like Scott, you just mentioned that, but I got to know what goes into getting 2 million safe miles.
Great question.
A lot of persistence, a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Just a lot of habits, a lot of habit forming, a lot of slowing down when you're going too fast or you're
Yeah.
thinking too much. Slow down your thinking. Not worrying so much, just trying to not let yourself get too rattled by whatever situation it is, whether it's
Hmm.
traffic or it's late at night or if it's bad weather.
Uh-huh.
There's always there's a million things going through your head at any given moment. And you're just got to handle all of them coming at it.
Sounds like you got to stay present a lot.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, you really have to be in the moment. I mean, there's plenty of time for your mind to wander all over the place. I mean,
Uh-huh.
yeah, you got all kinds of thoughts going on, but I feel like at a certain point, I don't know when it happened, you're doing everything like secondhand. Like
Hmm.
everything's just, and this is where habit forming comes in, right? You're responding to situations. You have a plan for a situation, so your plans become your habits.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how I've got here, and just taking my time. I don't get into it too much of a rush.
Hmm.
I do, just practice being safe every day. And, a lot of guys don't do that. A lot of guys and gals don't do that as much as they should be doing these days.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up. Scott and I talk a lot off the air, surprisingly. It's not just here,
You called me
but
4 times today.
oh, come on.
You did. No, you called.
Uh,
I'll pull up the phone.
they were all exciting things. But no, so I mean, I think one of the things we always talk about from like a sales side is like being in sales is like your habits, like you fall to the level of your habits, right? Like what if your habit is to get into, I need to do this, I need to make this many phone calls, or I need to follow up with this many people, I need to be timely, I need to be punctual. I need to send someone an email, right? If it takes 15 minutes the night before to send it and schedule it, go ahead and do it just so that you're kind of maintaining. And I think that's a really cool similarity you just brought up, which is like I think a lot of people when they strive to operate at like the highest that they can, I think a lot of times it comes down to the habits that they build.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, I mean, there's plenty of drivers out here with millions of miles of safe driving.
Hmm.
I think every one of them would attest to that, it's just the little things. It's really the little things all add up to big things.
Hmm.
All those little 1 mile adds up to 100, adds up to 1,000, adds up to, a million before
Yeah,
you know it.
Hmm.
absolutely.
So you just keep pushing that. And there's obviously situations that are completely out of the driver's control, but
Hmm.
I feel like if you're on top of the things, a lot of them you can't avoid still yet.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And we're talking a lot about habits here. Out of curiosity, are you anyone you know, or have you heard of drivers that have anything they're really superstitious about, or even like just
Ooh.
past a routine, but like so there's a lot of athletes who have some crazy superstitions. So does that happen in with guys like yourself and gals like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think they're more like the funny things, like don't let your truck
Yeah.
know you have money because it's going to need it soon after. Yeah, but just little things, checking. If you don't check, inevitably it's going to break. If it can break,
Mhm.
it will break. If you're not ready for it to break, it's going to break. And that's just what you got to be ready for. You just got to be ready for it to go down at any moment and be ready to deal with whatever the situation might be. It comes up.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't remember what law that is, but I think it was an old Air Force thing.
Murphy's law.
Murphy's
Murphy's
law.
law
Whatever can go wrong will go wrong.
will go wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
so Chris, with that, I mean, you know, it sounds like when you're talking about this, it sounds like you're speaking from like quite a bit of experience. And I think looking at that over 1 million miles, right? Like, I think
Over
anyone that's
two.
well, exactly. But
Yeah.
I feel like they talk about 10,000 hours, right? Clearly, you're well beyond 10,000 hours of
Yeah.
some on this. You know, and I imagine that comes up with there's a lot of journey that came with that, right? I mean, there's quite a bit, both how you got into it and kind
Sure.
of what you did while you were in it. I mean, would you mind sharing a bit about really how you fall into trucking?
Yeah. So I got into trucking with my ex-wife. She come home one day and was like, "Let's go trucking." And I was a 911 dispatcher at the time in Cincinnati, actually at the airport. And I said, "Well, why not?" So we did that, gave it a try. Uh, Stayed with Schneider for a while. I was actually happy at Schneider. One of the reasons I'm gone with Schneider is they just could not control their second and third shift dispatchers at Green Bay. They would call and often mess with your schedule or just straight up call you a liar about where you're at. It's bad company policy if you're out there. Just listen.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I talked to big companies here recently about this, and it's a problem that they all seem to have. They can't control their after hours workforce sometimes, it seems like.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me
Seems like,
about that. I've never heard that
yeah, why is
before.
that
yeah,
a
so
problem? Yeah.
it seems to be like, and this is what was MacMe, like and it probably isn't as big of a problem now, but it seems like, once you get a certain size of carrier, you got so much going on and somebody needs something done. So they just look at whoever's available or look at the situation, and they change things up. And that happened a lot, and it still happens a lot at the company driver level, I think. Company drivers have a plan that was set for them by a day shift planner or manager, and then it gets into the evening hours for whatever reason, it all gets shifted up, changed around by somebody else that comes in on a shift because that person needs to take care of their workflow. They're not really worried about what else is going on. That's what I imagine is going on.
Yeah, I was going to
Can't
say,
get
how
it
does it benefit?
exactly why. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's bad planning. But
Yeah.
I've seen that stuff happen several times with several carriers that I've been with over the years. So it's a trend. And then I hear that from other company drivers still today that's a problem today.
Interesting. So would you say that's really, I mean, because we've talked to some folks that are company drivers, we've talked to folks that are owner ops, we've talked to other folks that are leasing agents, right? I haven't, I wonder if it's maybe mode specific, because I wonder if, some of those fuel drivers, fuel haulers, for example, I wonder if they necessarily deal with the same thing. They seem to only really operate
Yeah,
at night, right?
I don't think you have the problem once you get into specialized, any kind of specialized stuff.
Okay.
I do feel like it tends to lie in the van freight world, for lack of a better, the dropping hooks and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it happened to me a lot at Schneider. Too
Could you
much.
give us an example of like a story of like,
Oh, you'd
what
have
does that look like?
you'd have a plan set for you the day before, and at 7 p.m., somebody comes in and calls you up, wakes you up, and decides they want you to trace trailers all over LA all night long. And then you got a 5 a.m. appointment to load up, but then they want you to go look for empties all night long.
So I assume this is before
This is
like
really
e-logs wouldn't
this
fall
is
into
probably oh
play.
05, 06. I'm like I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
I'm hoping a lot of this stuff. Well, at the time, I would say that they had not e-logs, but you had to do hourly updates every day. You had to update your hours of service, what you had available on your
Yeah.
Qualcomm. So they
Right.
had things tracking it, but they would still ask you to go do, you know, other tasks when you're supposed to be waiting around for a load or off duty or whatever. So
Hmm.
it was always little stuff like that, and that's ended up being why I left. Ultimately, why I
Yeah.
left. Experienced some similar problems over at Interstate Distributor, but then when I went to FedEx Custom Critical for several years and didn't have as many problems there, it being expedited, more specialized, and hands-on.
Yeah.
And usually you stuck with the plan.
More no nonsense. Get it done
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
right way.
yeah,
This is
So,
how we do it.
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and
So you think that if I understand you right, so this is an example of what you're talking about with specialized, right? When you were saying
yeah,
like I don't think you deal with that with maybe fuel haulers, for example. So when you went to custom critical, that's when you started to realize, oh, these guys are like mission oriented. This is like
yeah.
we're trying to get this done and we're not messing around. I wonder if it's an experience thing because I don't imagine for expedited you just take someone off the street to dispatch that. You'd probably want someone that had either spent some time in operations or something along those lines before they got into a
I'm,
role
I'm
like that.
sure. I'm sure it is. I mean, I'm sure you're looking for somebody that's going to come in and work a second or third night shift at some place and deal with truck drivers who are new students.
Mhm.
And you got a whole lot of opportunity there for all kinds of error and inefficiency. Looking back at it as an experienced trucker now. Um,
Mhm.
But I felt like I done a pretty good job at Schneider. I did get a 1 year excellent service award. So for my
Nice.
1 year that I was there, I
Congrats.
did all right.
There you go. Oh, so it's just the 1 year, and then decided time to do
So
my own thing. That
about 13 months and jumped and jumped into first lease purchase within 2 years of trucking.
Mhm. Okay, so this is actually probably a good time to bring that up. Then you bring up lease purchasing and
Sure.
owner operating, and you distinguish between the two in your little bio that you filled out for us. We were talking earlier. So our last episode was with Matt Lemmer, cents per mile. Not sure if you follow this channel or know of him, but he is a lease purchase as well, and he says that there are owner ops out there who say it's not the same thing. They knock on it, etc. You've done both. What's your stance,
So
and why
lease
is there a
purchase.
schism?
Well, there is a little bit of a difference, but it's more like the verbiage, right? But lease purchase
Sure.
program is like you go through a company that's hauling the freight typically. Like I work at Autumn Transport now, work for them as an owner operator.
Hmm.
They do a lease purchase
Hmm.
program. I actually, own my truck, don't lease through them right now. I mean, I could. There's no real
Right.
difference, just where you buy your truck at. And then as far as an owner
Interesting.
operator goes, and there's a difference between being an owner operator leased to a carrier and then an owner operator running under their own independent authority, obviously, which is
Right. Right.
truthfully at that point, you're a carrier, you're a motor carrier at that point. You've got an MC number and everything
Hmm.
else. So,
Hmm.
to me, it's you really just got to look at numbers. I really don't care which way, or what the schism is. It doesn't matter to me. What the end of the day is what the numbers look like, as any business owner is going to do. And for me,
Right.
for me as I am right now, if I needed a truck, I wouldn't turn my nose up at a lease purchase program, but it'd be very prudent to look at that and see what's available and see what's in there, and make sure that you're not getting it taken advantage of. There are a lot of bad lease purchase programs out there.
When you say
So what
bad,
would
do you
make them
mean like,
bad? Yeah.
yeah, like
To me,
predatory or like what?
yeah, to me, there's some that's there's definitely predatory ones out there. I mean, the FMCSA, they're saying that there's no good lease purchase program out there.
Really?
Um, and that's
Wow.
that's debatable. I mean, but it's really, it really boils down to the person that's getting into the program, whether they're ready for that, if they're ready to take on that jump of owning a truck and taking the next level of responsibility. And a lot of times people
Hmm.
that get into the lease purchase program, they're not ready. They don't have the capital built up. They don't have the business acumen or the experience of keeping the records that they need to have to be successful. So, it's jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire too often. It's too many people get into it too
Hmm.
quick or for the wrong reasons. They want to make more money. They're already stretched out financially, and they jump in and they find out that you really actually make less money as probably as a new owner operator for several years before you're making more money.
Like any business, takes at least 3 years
Okay.
to break even on average,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
a lot of guys and gals get into it and they don't realize that, and they find themselves in positions they don't want to be. And I've been there. I was there one time. I was definitely in a position where I wish I'd have never bought a truck, but
Yeah. It reminds me a lot, Scott, of, some
yeah.
sales jobs that are 1099. I think a lot, they tend to have, they'll take most people, right? But there's only so many people that have the discipline and the consistency to actually, survive or thrive in that environment. I think like you think like freight agents, for example, you know, like that's some of those are commission only, right? It sounds similar where there's help available, right? And you're kind of getting, some benefits of being in, leasing from a company that may, provide you freight and some other things. But if you don't have the business acumen to really, it sounds like if you don't have the pieces, you can get over your skis pretty quickly. Is that fair to?
Yeah, I think it's nobody fits in the same peg hole, right? Everybody's different. So everybody's got different skill sets and everybody learns a little bit differently. So it's the same in trucking as it is in any field. I feel like, you throw somebody in there and they're just out the gate, just phenomenal. And then some people struggle their entire existence with trying to own a truck. They just go, it's really a miserable existence. So if you get behind on your taxes and behind on your payments and everything else, and sometimes people don't know when to quit, and that's something that then they need to be told it's okay to quit. It's okay to go ahead and hang it up and go try something new when it gets bad, or if it really sucks the soul out of you, go do something else. Nobody says you have to stay at it.
Yeah. And I think that's like people's fear of being considered a failure when it's like, first off, the whole cliche, if you succeed, you're not learning. It's great, but you're not learning. And then failure is really just a lesson if you choose to take it that way. Um, and and looking at your Instagram a bit, it seems that you seem to be, and we're just getting to know each other a little bit. We were introduced at a conference once, so I don't want to be assumptive, but you seem like a no bad days kind of guy. Like more of just big picture, not sweating the small stuff. Is that accurate? And if so, how did you get to that point?
Yeah, I think I've always been a pretty positive guy. I'm getting more and more positive the older I get. I'm not going to say I don't have bad days or sad days or whatever, but the big picture is, yeah, it's a journey, and life's pretty good. I've got a good family. I've got a good business partner with Autumn Transport. I've got a good piece of equipment out there in the driveway. Going through one of my spells with it right now where I'm like, gosh, I just don't want to have to work on it all the time, but that's not really how life goes. You just got to keep working on them sometimes. But no, I don't sit around and mope too much. If I have a bad day, I just go do something else. If I can't do anything about it, why sit around and stress about it? And I'm not always been like that. I mean, I've probably let the stress drive me into some pretty crazy state of mind sometimes, but I come out of it. So that's the one thing you got to do. You got to find something to focus on and do something else other than just sit and deal with things that you just can't. You can't do anything about it. So move on.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think we lost Scott for a second, but no,
Gotcha.
I think everything you said really kind of resonates. I think that's a really good kind of, I don't want to say map, but compass for life, or like direction for life. It sounds like you've probably had, I imagine with trucking, it's cyclical. You've had some ups and downs, and it sounds like you've just figured, hey, as long as I keep putting one foot in front of the other, we're going to get there. I don't have to run a mile today. I can run 50 feet today. I might do, half a mile tomorrow and a mile the next day. And maybe the day after that, I don't move at all. Right. But as long as you kind of consistently keep going, it's, you feel pretty good.
Nope. We're
Oh,
having some difficulties here.
yes, we are. Um,
I was worried about mine. I was Starlink. I've got Starlink, and it's been thunderstorming. So
oh yeah.
right now,
It's
I got a
yeah, it's a beautiful,
really good
beautiful.
sunset here on the ridge.
Yeah. I was going to say, where are you at? You said Eastern Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky, just outside of Moorhead, Kentucky, a little college town. So
Okay.
up
Okay.
on the ridge, as we call it. There's ridges and hollers. You live in one or the other.
Yeah. I think I was just, yeah, right. I think I was just, we just had, Aaron Hatfield
Yeah,
on
I
here.
know. Yeah, Aaron's a great guy. Talked to him a few times, met him.
Awesome fella. I keep running into him at conferences. Every time I book myself for another one, I see that on LinkedIn he's going, and I'm like, man, are we just like in the same, are we marching the same beat or what?
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think I spent a little bit of time when I was younger. My mother worked for, I think it was Nabisco at the time, and I was up in Shelbyville, Kentucky for
Okay.
a little bit, but I don't think that's too close to where you are, to be honest with you. That might be
Shelbyville's just east of Louisville. It's about 2 hours.
2 hours,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But you said something earlier I wanted to ask you about while Scott's kind of working here. But I wanted to ask, you said, being an experienced driver and looking back, I'm curious what separates an experienced driver from a newbie? And just if you could pick three things.
Uh, a new guy's just going, or a new person's just going to say yes to everything. They're trying to please. They're trying to, they got that
Really?
new job. Yeah, I mean, you got a new job. You're going to sit there and you're going to try to please your employer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just kind of the mindset that you're going to have, I would imagine, or at least I imagine that's what I had. Any
Yeah.
kind of new job, you're there to impress. So you don't know when to say no. You don't know that it's okay to tell somebody, hey, I just don't feel like I can run that, or I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I can do that. And it's okay to say that. It's okay not to get out there and nail down 700 miles a day in a 11-hour shift. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, is knowing your limits. Knowing when to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely looking back, and truckers do get somewhat of a good BS detector over time. You can tell when your chain's being yanked around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just for me, just how I think a lot of situations I might have thought were pretty impossible a long time ago just are a breeze these days.
Like what?
Just like, if I break down, what to do about it, where to go, how to find something to deal with it really fast.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know, call somebody, get online, which, that's developed since I've been in a truck, is the whole having everything at the end of your fingertips, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, just last week I was broke down and I needed a fuel line, and called a guy back to the house, and he said, go get a brake line. So that's what I done. I went and got an Uber down to the store and got a brake line and came back and fixed the truck right there in the
Really?
parking lot. Yeah.
So it sounds like as you do it more, you have a calmness about things like that, where if you were new, you'd be like, oh no, everything's ruined, and you're just kind of like, well, I'll just over communicate. I'll go take the time to go figure out what I got to do, and as long as I'm slow and steady and methodical about how I'm going to fix this, it'll get fixed, and I'm going to get back on the road. I'm not here forever.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. And it's a process. There's some days that I just don't want to work on it.
Yeah.
So if I'm somewhere where I can get in and get something done, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
But then there's some days where you're a place where you don't know if they know how to work on it or know if they've got the parts, and you just kind of, you need to go. You need to get the load down the road. You need to make money, because every time I break down, I'm not making money anymore. So
Yeah.
you just kind of step up and deal with it. And the older you get, the more experience you get with that, and the easier it gets. So
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned something that's kind of, yeah, I mentioned earlier about some parallel, but I think it's the same thing. What you just mentioned, number one, when you're new, it's the same thing with sales folks. They say yes too much.
yeah,
They say yes way too much. And I'm sure when you're driving a truck, especially if you're for yourself, you have an aspect of that is sales and is negotiation and is all of those things. And I just think it's so interesting to find parallels between two different folks that do two different things, and I just think that's so neat. Um, but some of the other things you mentioned, folks knowing when they're getting their chain yanked, right? Like know when someone's getting one over on you. How long did it take you to kind of start to go, oh, I'm getting wheelbarrowed right now?
not too long. And trucking, it just doesn't seem like it takes too long. You get that call up, and it's the buttery. Oh, you're such a great driver. Come on, we need you. We need you for this one right here. You're the
Oh
only
yeah.
one that can do it.
Oh yeah. The compliments usually are followed by a big
Yeah,
ask.
yeah, yeah.
Oh man.
Buttery. But it's like I say, going back to the whole mindset. Trucking's what you make of it. If you let it be a miserable existence, it will be a miserable existence. And to those that it is a miserable existence for, you need to derail yourself. Get out of the truck, go do something else, or if you can't change your mindset and look on the brighter side of things, you just need to change it up, because that's the way you go to getting into an accident or messing up really bad, is being in a bad mindset every day.
Mhm. Absolutely. You mentioned too that now with the internet, everything's kind of at the at the tip of your fingers, right?
Yep.
What's that been like watching that change? Because there's a lot of communities on the internet, on Discord, on Reddit for truckers. Has that been positive for you? Has that been negative? Have you like what's your experience been, and what do you think? Is it overall a good for
Yeah.
everybody, or what do you think?
I think, well, once again, it's what you make of it. If you
Yeah.
if you let it feed the negative side, right? If you go in there and just bitch about everything all the time and find something to get yourself down with, you're
Hmm.
just going to feed your negativity and get madder and rage about it. But there's so many communities out there, man. There's like X, there's Freight X, and then there's Instagram, and there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook communities, and like you said, Discord and Reddit. And there's all these bubbles that they're not even aware that each other's there. Like there's like this one group and this other group, and it's kind of an amazing time really for the industry to have that, because you can go out there and get connected online, which you can still get connected somewhat in the truck stops. It's not as good as it used to be. I mean, guys don't get out and talk as much as they used to in the truck stops or in the truck stop yards, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of online stuff out there and a lot of different communities out there. And I'm sure there's something out there for everybody, honestly,
Hmm.
these days. And it's just interesting. I like every time I think I've seen it all, I've not even scratched the surface of it. I
Yeah.
find another TikTok influencer with 100,000 viewers I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting phenomena to get on there and just see everybody sharing what they're doing, and it's a great time.
Yeah, it really is like a great equalizer. Everybody has an opportunity to share for better or for worse.
I mean, when I was
um,
in kindergarten, show and tell was my favorite day.
there you go.
Right. I always try to sneak in like the Hot Wheels, and they're like, "No toys. You can't bring toys." I thought it was legit. I'm like, I don't. Why can't I bring my Hot Wheel? This
Yeah.
is junior year of high school, and no. But no. So talking about the communities is funny. I was just picturing instead of everybody sitting in like the diner or hanging out outside or whatever at the truck stop, I just imagine everybody in their cabs on their phones, all talking to each other instead of being at the truck stop talking to each
I
other.
mean, that's a lot of times that's what it's like now. You go into a truck
Yeah,
stop diner and they got their headset on, they're talking to some dude.
it's like I'm
Uh,
right here, man.
yeah, you're right there. So
Crazy, crazy world.
it's
Oh,
interesting. It's interesting.
so, so one thing you had talked about wanting to discuss. So I mean, we're just at the tail end of it. We had Driver Appreciation Week recently, and you see actually, interestingly enough, like a litany of different opinions on it. And you said you brought up very specifically that you wanted to talk about it. So I'll let you get into what you want to talk about. You gave us some ideas, but what is it that you want to cover, and what do you think is important to get out about it?
Me personally, I feel like I had a pretty good truck driver appreciation week from my company. I got a
Mhm.
really nice bag, a tape measure, a Swiss Army knife. Air Dog sent me a hat and a T-shirt. Shout out
Nice.
to Air Dog. Uh,
Good looks. Good looks there, dog.
yeah. So I mean, it's kind of this mixed bag. Everybody appreciates it. Everybody
Hmm.
appreciates truckers. I'm not going to say that they're being inauthentic when they do, but
Hmm.
sometimes it feels like maybe they're not as appreciative as they say they are, right? For various reasons. And you know, it's kind of this funny thing that a lot of the X community picks on offices all the time because they're having parties at the office every day and all this
Yeah.
every day, and the trucker's going there and having his can of Viney weenies. So it's one of those things. I guess it's more of we get a week, and
Yeah.
it seems like
Yeah.
office having a party every day. So
Sure.
sometimes
So
it feels like that.
so when you say they, you're talking about people who work in the office
Oh yeah,
or just
yeah. Different
corporate
corporate
folks.
offices. Yeah, they're all the time having picnics and parties and get-togethers and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
shoot, most companies, I don't even think they do driver picnics anymore. That used to be a big thing back in the day. I don't even think they do that anymore. Some
That's
of them.
crazy. That's crazy. And you mentioned as well that like So why many drivers feel left out? Were you saying that like drivers feel left out of driver appreciation week, or just in general, like you said, with the parties all the time at the offices?
Yeah, I think drivers feel left out in general a lot of time. I don't feel like that in my company, but a lot of the drivers that I do talk to, they just feel like they're a cog in the machine. They just feel
Hmm.
like they're the person there moving the load. They're not really getting any great appreciation. It's more bad feedback from the company they're at than good feedback. I had an
Hmm.
interesting conversation with the dispatcher here recently, talking about some of the people that are coming out, come from some of these companies that are just they're like abused animals.
Mm,
I mean, that's what
Wow,
their behavior is. Uh,
that's a very specific
it's a very
explanation.
specific,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like
So
you're not you thought about that one.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, you think about that. You think about what a company is treating their drivers like, and it's obviously bad. Industry turnover rates an average of 130%. This is why there's not a driver
Wow.
shortage.
how can it be
Yeah.
greater than the, just out of curiosity,
Just
how can it
attrition.
be greater than that? Does that mean that everyone that was hired left and then people that weren't
Oh
hired
yeah,
that
there's
year
there's
are also leaving?
sure there's
Yeah.
companies that have 20,000 drivers
Retiring.
that hire 24,000 drivers a year.
Hmm.
You know,
What?
yeah,
They have 20,000 spots. They have to hire 24,000
20,000. They
drivers, but
hire
they lose so
24,000. Yeah,
many.
they
Yeah.
lose that. Many. They lose more than what they have.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I'm not going to name any big companies, but you can use your imagination. They're out there.
How
But they
does
Hmm.
that how does
So
that I've that's so mind blowing to me if we can stick on that for a second. Because I mean, I think, you think about big, Scott, you think about some of the larger, brokerages during the last, the big boom of 2020. It's like kind of the same thing where it's
yeah.
like I'm just hiring people to, be in a seat and catch money, right?
Yeah.
And
And stay
and
ahead
you
of
think
turnover.
and right and I mean that's one thing because that's a person sitting at a seat and turning the laptop back in, right? 6
Hmm.
weeks later. But
Right.
this sounds to me like, and Chris, what you're explaining is I had to train somebody. It's not like you had to take a regular training. I either had to train somebody or I had to find somebody with a CDL,
Hmm.
invest time, show them how we want it done just for it to turn over. That seems like such a massive loss of money. How do you I can't wrap my head around that.
well, maybe it's probably a write off, some of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of the military come out and they go through CDL school. You're responsible for paying for your CDL for the school and stuff up front out of your pocket. Some companies they'll do a deal where they'll finance you up front, but then you're signed on to work for a year. If you quit for that year, then you're going to pay that money back. So you got all
Interesting.
these different things we're doing this. This is why, we always say that, the ATA is lying about there being a driver shortage, right? There's not a
Yeah.
CDL driver shortage. There's 6.5 million CDL holders out there right now that don't have a trucking job because they've
So,
left the industry because the
yeah.
industry spits them up and chews them out, chews them up, spits them out.
No, yeah.
Well, that's kind
Wow.
of the joke, when you get into Truck Driver Appreciation Week, because if we were really appreciated, I don't feel like the industry turnover would be as bad as it is.
That's a
Yeah.
great point. That's like that's like a company having ping pong tables and foosball and free beer Fridays. And be like, we have a great culture, but they can't hold on to anybody.
Yeah, but the layoffs are on Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Layoffs are on Tuesday. Have an extra
Yeah.
taco.
Yeah, yeah. Have some beer that's on tap. Layoffs on
Yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah, that's Chris. That's so hard for me to wrap my head around. I mean, that's one of the reasons we started this is to hear stuff like that. I mean, going back to what you were saying about not really letting anything get to you, right? I mean, do you think that was born out of those experiences that other people may have quit and you kind of just kept persevering? Or tell me about that. And if you have any stories without naming names, obviously, like,
Hmm.
what are some examples of like, man, it's not even skill, it's grit.
Sure. I mean, I think for me is I kind of come from a rough job already, being a 911 and being on an ambulance. That's a tough ride by itself.
Hmm.
So you learn what you can deal with and what you can't, I think. And for me, dealing with the obviously I went and moved from company and company until I found a place. Most guys do that. I got lucky. I found a company within 5 years of my career that I've stayed with ever since 2010, pretty much.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of guys, they have 6 jobs every 2 years, it seems like, right? They're just
Whew.
continuously moving on. And then they move out. And you're seeing a lot of that right now. They think, well, maybe I can buy a truck and I can do better owning my own truck. And then they're out there consisting on the worst spot rate market we've probably ever seen.
Mhm.
In my years of trucking, I don't think it was this bad in 08 and 09, to be
Mhm.
honest with you. Adjusted for
Wow.
inflation, I guarantee it's not as bad, probably. I mean, this is a rough time right now. So
Mhm.
those that can get through this, and I wouldn't want to be out there in the market without having a really good partner, without having some kind of specialty to keep me going, because it's a tough place to be right now. And I imagine a lot of people, they might have a lot of grit, but I think there's easier ways right now to make money and not in trucking right now at that level.
Yeah. And so you said you talked about having a great partner, the specialty. I noticed that you're not, pulling a dry van. You got a tanker. What is it that you move?
Yeah, so I do dry bulk pneumatic freight. I've been
Oh,
doing that for 14 years.
oh wow. Okay.
Mine is 3 months. I went and pulled RGN. I really wanted to do drop deck freight there. I got I
Mhm.
got my time with it, and I went back to pneumatics.
You're like,
So
"Ah, left." Yeah.
yeah, I just pull any kind of dry powder, dry loose stuff. Grains, sugars,
Mhm.
um, calcium, stuff like that.
Hmm. So that leads us into the question of almost every podcast we've had, every one of these we've done so far.
True. This is
So
a good time for that.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but we weren't, and you probably are, but there seems to be a hierarchy of what you're hauling.
No,
And
Yeah. Oh,
the
see, that
only
sounds. Chris
thing
knows.
the
Chris knows
only
about the
thing that
hierarchy.
we seem to get over and over again from everyone that isn't dry van is that dry van sits at the bottom.
well,
And
no,
that just seems to
dry
be
van's important too, though. I
it
mean,
is,
Mhm.
of course, but this I've
As far
not
as like
my
pecking
opinion.
order of like
There's
of like like the machismo part of it, like
yeah.
oh,
Like,
who's the most
the guys that haul steel and heavy haul, they seem to think they're just absolute cowboys.
king of the mountain? Yeah.
They're like when when we ask them, what do you think of the other folks? They're like, when you're done driving dry van and you want to be a man, come man or a real woman, come haul steel or heavy haul.
Yeah. Drive a
But I'm
flatbed.
curious. Yeah. And then when we talk to fuel haulers, they say, we're probably the cleanest, right, in the industry. We're all button up shirts and, squared away, real safe. But
Home every night.
home every night. Yeah. Where do you think you guys fall in that hauling dry bulk?
And your
man,
thoughts on that hierarchy overall.
Of course.
all that customer wants is their load. They don't care. I know my place. They just want that silo filled up so they can keep their manufacturing line going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean, I guess I feel like the bull haulers are probably the top of the list there.
oh, all right.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, heard a little bit about bull haulers. I'm sure Danielle's probably brought this up. By the way, she says hello. She wanted to make it, but kiddos call. That she's wild. She just runs everywhere. Um, but her uncle and dad were bull haulers. So do you know about that?
I think I remember hearing about that.
So what have you heard, and or like do you have any like stories of people who are bull haulers? Because it just seems like a wild. One of the things you want to get into is the fact that like logistics people know a little bit about how your day goes, how your life goes, but not even enough to scratch the surface. And then people outside of logistics, like they drive by the subculture every day and it drives by them, and they've got really no clue about it. So like any like wild insight into that, or even in your own experiences with stuff that just like you think is maybe even normal to you, or maybe like wowed you that people just wouldn't even think of happening or considering happening.
I got two stories. One of them's cool and one of them's kind of crazy. The
Love it.
cool one is, we'll start with the cool one. So I was hauling some potato flakes out of Idaho to Jackson, Tennessee for Pringles.
Hmm.
Um,
No
I was
free edge
coming across
Pringles.
US 30. It's wintertime. It's snowing. It's getting pretty bad. There's a little truck stop by a lake there. I can't remember the name of the lake. old truck stop. I pull in there and I'm done for the night because I'm like, man, I'm not keeping going in this stuff. But these 3 bull hauler trucks pull in right up to the fuel island. And I was up there kind of talking to them, and I was saying, man, it's pretty bad over there. They got the interstate shut down and everything. They're like, no, we're going to be in Denver 8 a.m. in the morning. They had 3 loads of, bulls. They were just going. They're like, we know the ways to go with the road shut down. Which I imagine staying on the U.S. highways or cut state roads or whatever they have to. But I believe they got there, and that's just what they do. I mean, you got to keep moving. You got to get that. You got to get them cows there.
When the cows can't sit in freezing cold or rain or snow.
Sit there and freeze, and and also I think one thing I do know about it: the more time a cow is on the vessel, its heart rate's elevated, so it's sitting there burning calories and losing weight. Well, it's by the pound, so they want to get that load there as fast as they can to get as much, hoof weight as they can when it's at the sale or at the market.
I didn't even think of that. Just the stress on the bulls of them losing weight, so you lose money on that, which makes your cost of the truck more expensive. Like that's why. So those are the things that people don't even think about. Like just what goes into like moving a live animal. Like never mind refrigerated or frozen freight or heavy equipment. They all have these crazy nuances. Again, you just see it on the truck or you see it wherever the end destination is, but you don't get what goes into it. You don't even think about what goes into it.
Yeah. Then the crazy one is around Atlanta, about 2013, 2014, you remember the ice apocalypse? It came as a crazy ice storm, and all of Atlanta was froze up. Northern Atlanta, everything was shut down for days. We had a foot of snow. It dropped off to negative temperatures. Well, the roads are shut down. I'm sitting there and I watch a couple of chicken trucks go by empty. They go over the hill. I'm like, man, them guys they must be getting paid really well, right? They come back over with a load of chickens. They take off. Well, the roads finally open up. I get off and I'm driving along and I come up this hill and here's the chicken trucks. They're over in the ditch. They slid off the hill over the ditch and 2 loads of dead chickens.
Yeah, I guess
froze to death.
Jeez, it's a tough way to go for the chickens.
So you think about the little crazy stuff like that. What was that phone call? What were those phone calls like? Oh my gosh, we've got to get these chickens out here. Our heaters are in the storage shed or down. We got to move the chickens. Yeah. Then you get the phone call. Oh, we slid off the road.
Lost all the chickons.
No more chickens. They don't need to be kept warm.
Makes you wonder if that was an insurance job, doesn't it?
Oh,
right?
boy.
No kidding. It's like, well, we can leave them here and they die, or we lose.
We can put them on the truck.
Make sure that the drivers are mostly okay. Yeah. Just drive it into get a new truck out of it too.
God.
Oh, geez.
That's something else.
That's a good point. Might have been an insurance job.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I hope those drivers got out there and didn't have to sit there all evening, with the. You can imagine they probably had to sit there and wait till somebody at the 4-wheel drive come out and pick them up.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, if it was that bad, I'm sure the cops weren't out there, like you said. Roads open up, so you just head out. So there's not like unless they call 911 or they were able to get to them. Wow, yeah,
I had a fun little time that trip. That was a good day. I was sitting there with 3 other truck drivers. We were parked off in a little shopping mall. There was a gas station across the road. They kept the gas station open. They didn't really sell any food in there, but the lady that owned it, she brought in a big old pot of hot dogs and hot dog sauce and set up a card table, and we played cards for 2 days because you couldn't legally go anywhere. Like state troopers, they were shutting you down, giving you tickets if you were out there, even with chains, because there was nothing. They'd never seen anything like that, is what I understood in northern Georgia. So,
yeah. There's absolute panic in the southeast when it drops below 45 degrees.
Yeah, it reminds me of like 90 going through Buffalo. Every couple of years they shut that thing down, and I can remember going back from college, and I had this real smooth black pickup truck at Tacoma. It had that all-wheel drive, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll get back. And I remember driving and seeing one of the New York State Police trucks, because some of them have trucks, and I just remember it being in the median, snowed up to the sides, and going, maybe I should call a friend and just stop for a bit, because man, it's I don't think people respect enough bad weather. I always make the joke here in Chicago that when it snows, everything's fine, but for some reason, when it rains, nobody can drive. I have
Mhm.
not figured it out, but when it rains, people are speeding, and then you see somebody go past you, and then you're kind of going the speed limit. You come up, you go into the airport, you look to the left, and that Acura is just upside down on the right and left lane, and you're like, oh, all right, well, I'm going to keep going my own speed then, right? But man, that it must be crazy trying to manage that. I
Oh,
mean,
and
for
what
you,
you
it
guys
sounded like a
drive?
little vacation, but for some folks that were, probably some of those new guys that you were talking about earlier that felt the stress and felt like they couldn't say no and had to go do something. I mean, it sounds like that's kind of the recipe for getting in trouble or getting in danger or putting yourself or others.
Yeah. I think you get to talking to drivers, and you find you can tell a good company by the drivers you talk to there. They've been there for a long time. They're pretty low stress. They're pretty even keel. I think there's a lot of good companies out there. There's a lot of bad, and good drivers are going to leave. They're going to go. They're going to go find the good jobs. They're going to go if they
Hmm.
really want to.
Hmm.
That's what they're going to do.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
hear you 100%.
Same thing with good sales guys. They're going to go somewhere that treats them right,
Where
right?
the money, yeah, where you treat it right, and where you
Absolutely.
got the money,
Yeah,
for
where the
sure.
quota doesn't change every month, right, Scott?
Oh my god, yeah, forget about it. Like my girlfriend, like like the company she works for, they change stuff like every several months. But I guess
Yeah.
the CEO just stepped down. Not to get too off topic, but the CEO just stepped down today, so I'm hoping things calm down a bit. And it's like they were like kids in a candy store. They're just changing like every 5 6 months because I think like he was worried about the board and just
Oh,
couldn't think
yeah.
of make anything stick. But so Chris, enough of that. But Chris, I've seen it. You mentioned it, with the questions, and you also have seen it on the. Actually, the first post here that I saw was you like sitting outside, and you were talking about it was a good day, and you're at the ridge, and you mentioned that again. Like maybe this is a stupid question, but what's the ridge?
The Ridge is my home. I mean, that's
Okay,
what we all call it up here. Everybody that lives up here calls it the Ridge.
okay,
Um,
so area.
so I just live in Eastern Kentucky, and I got great neighborhood, got great neighbors. I got, probably I've owned this for 16 years. I think 16 years ago, I never would have imagined I would have been here still yet today. I think when I bought it then, I even had ideas of having it for a while, making some money, flipping it, whatever. And the
Hmm.
older I get, the more I appreciate being out here in nature and kind of away from everything. It's kind of my fortress of solitude I can go to and get away from the world, right? And just go there and kind of watch nature, watch the sky, listen to the birds. And it's the Ridge, man. I can get up here and stare at a fire and be just as happy as a lark.
I love it. I love it. So definitely more of a country guy than a city guy then.
I can do both. I can I can do both.
Like
I've
visit,
driven
or could you
driven
just up and move to a city?
uh yeah, I could probably move in the city. I mean, I'd figure out my way about it.
Hmm.
Would I do it willingly? No, it'd have to pay a heck of a lot of money for really
would
quick.
the family be happy? I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
no. But without that, so that's more of one of those conjecture questions we'll never find out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, just from my experiences of delivering in cities, I don't think I'd have a problem. I'm pretty good with just adapting to whatever the situation is.
Yeah. That
Okay.
makes sense. Well, we've been talking for quite a bit. I guess usually I want to ask people, this question as we get to wind down. But and I think you touched on it earlier. But what would you say to young folks who want to or have thought about joining this industry?
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You don't have to do it all real quick. You don't have to do it all real fast. Find a pace that you're happy with and stick with it.
Hmm.
Learn as much as you can. Don't ever stop learning. I think once you stop learning, you pretty much need to move on and do something else. So yeah, I think if you want to do it, just get in there and be fiscally prudent. Don't overextend yourself. Don't go out and you don't have to buy everything, and you don't have to make up for all the life that you're missing while you're out on the road in 3 days. I think that's a big problem. You go home and you want to do big things because you feel like you're missing out on so much, because you do. If you're out on the road for 10 years, I mean, you've probably worked nearly as much as a regular man works at a normal job his entire life in 10 years. It's something like,
wow.
yeah, I did the math one time. It's like 10 years of trucking is equal to 32 years of a normal 40-hour a week job. So
That's crazy.
it's crazy to think about, but that's kind of, it's just, take your time, enjoy it, learn as much as you can. You don't have to buy a truck to be happy. If you want to buy a truck, you can buy a truck. I'm not so sure about these new trucks. There's some people out there that have a better handle on them. I like the older stuff myself, but it's expensive either way you go. When the truck owning, if you own it, it's going to break.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah,
total sense.
and I guess like do you just learn that on the fly, or like how like you just as it happens? Like how does one learn to fix a truck?
Yeah, I think a lot mechanical aptitude a little bit. I probably had a little bit when I got into it. I used to
Okay,
fix
so
computers, so I was used to fixing things,
okay,
and just I'm not afraid to tear things apart. There's things that I won't tear apart because I feel like it's above what I want to get into.
yeah,
A lot of it, those you just kind of get the muscle memory and doing things and learning what the tool is and being willing to. It's a lot of the job.
gotcha. Yeah, so that's right there is how I know. Like that's the one thing immediately. Boom! I know I'm not made to be well, at least an owner operator, lease, lease operator. Because I just like when you said I'm not afraid of tearing things apart, like I cringed. Like I can't even. No, like IKEA furniture is like my max.
I kind of rather enjoy tearing it apart these days. I think I enjoy it
Yeah,
tearing it apart better than I do driving it now.
yeah. I just like to get in there. Plus, yeah, I guess you just kind of build upon your knowledge. A piece leads to another piece, and you just go from there, like you said, until you get uncomfortable with it.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
pretty
Yeah,
much it.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
Paul. Anything else that you wanted to throw out before we wind things down and let Chris get back to the fam?
No, I mean, I guess the last thing I'd say is, if anybody was listening and you had one thing you wanted to tell somebody out there that's maybe one of your peers that you've
Yeah,
never
like
met
any shout
before,
outs.
anything like that.
Oh,
Yeah, any
okay.
shout
Go
outs,
ahead.
any words of wisdom, just anything that helps encompass, this conversation we had, Chris.
Well, I got to shout out to the boys because without the boys, I wouldn't be here. So, Gord, Reed, Justin Martin, Mike Lombard, Dom Tulo, those guys right there, they've led me to this. I feel like a lot of it. And then there's just a whole bunch of people I've met over the last couple of years in the logistics industry. It's just been absolutely amazing to know and get to know, and look forward to seeing all of them and meeting new people. Keep
Awesome.
trucking and keep on the journey.
Yes, sir. And when you say like got you out there, isn't like they to like tell your story and get on the social media and stuff, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I feel like they tell people, you need to talk to Chris Thomas and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I feel like
Absolutely.
that's kind of where my podcast journey started with those guys there that were doing their own podcasts and
Hmm.
their own things and kind of getting me out there.
Cool. Well, hey, we hope we can help that out. So anybody looking to check Chris's story out, you can find him at Indie Trucker on Instagram. Anywhere else, Chris?
Yep, you can find me on X, pretty much anywhere at Indie Trucker. I might even do TikTok one of these days. Who knows? I've
There you go.
been saying I'm going to do video all year, and I just haven't got around to doing it. Takes a
Yeah.
lot of discipline.
Do it.
Hats off to the people who do video every day because that's not an easy job.
Oh, every day.
Even with the easy tools, I mean, every day, like Joe Seppi, that guy's amazing. Maybe I just love watching their content more than I want to make it. I just want to watch everybody.
Yeah, there you go. So for me, it's like I really like making it, but I can't like social media for me is such a struggle. And the editing's not really for me either. So I'm like forcing myself to do it because we love doing this so much and Paul's getting into it too. And it's like you said, it's a lot more work than you think. And we do real basic. Like we just do real basic stuff. Like I don't even get in there and chop much up other than the stuff we post out there in the beginning and end, make it clean. Like that is it. And like you said, super basic tools. I do have
Yep.
to get into watching it more myself. Anyways, so yeah, you can find Chris anywhere, according to him, at Indie Trucker, and you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram, because that's all my tiny brain can handle, at What's Domiciled. So thanks so much for joining, everybody, and Chris, thank you.
See y'all. Thanks.
See ya.